Hey there, what's going on, everyone? Lauren Sisler here with AL.com. Welcome to your Week 4 Alabama SEC Insider, brought to you by All South Appliance Group. Alabama beat reporter Mike Rodak joining us now to go over the recap of the track meet that was Alabama Ole Miss in Oxford on Saturday. That was something else. Let me just get your initial thoughts on what you kind of saw out on the field there on Saturday.
Yeah, I think I'm still catching my breath, and it's been almost 2 days since. Yeah, it was a late night, and I think we knew it was going to be a late night, not only because the game was pushed back by 90 minutes, but because we knew it was two offenses coming into this one. And I mean, to Nick Saban's credit, he did say it all week that this is going to be a tough offense to stop and really challenging for his defense. And that's exactly what it was. And it's a game like I've never seen before. I can't remember ever covering a game where there was 700 offensive yards from one team, and it was pretty impressive on Alabama's part there. But I've never also seen a game where a team's given up 646 yards, and nor has there been a game in Alabama history with that. So it was a historic game to cover in some ways, and just one where you left that building thinking, this isn't the biggest game of the year by any means. That might be coming up this week, but it felt like a game where there's just so many stories and angles coming out of it, more than maybe you would have expected coming in.
Yeah, no doubt. Nick Saban even said coming into the week, Ole Miss tends to be that team that has been a thorn in their side, and they certainly were every bit of that on Saturday night. The final score 63-48. Like you said, one of those games where you literally just can't catch your breath. I did the post-game show with Matt Scalisi, and it was just interesting seeing some of the comments saying, like, give me my blood pressure pills. I need help. Lots of very uneasy Alabama fans throughout much of that football game. So we'll start on the offensive side of football. Mac Jones, Najee Harris having a field day. So Mac Jones, 28-32 for 417 yards, 2 touchdowns. Najee becoming the first Alabama player since Trent Richardson back in 2011. He had 5 rushing touchdowns. Tremendous day for him. 206 total rushing yards. So with that being said, are we at a place now heading into Week 4 of the SEC college football season that we could potentially say that Mac Jones and or Najee Harris are Heisman contenders?
Yeah, Mac definitely. I think Najee's still going to have a tough time just based on the position he plays, and you really have to put up a historic season in order to really get consideration there. And I think he knows that. That's what he said at the beginning of the fall camp period, where he was talking about his video series he made on YouTube, which was about the campaign to be a Heisman, and he sort of acknowledged that, hey, it's pretty tough for running back to be a Heisman. So it's going to be an uphill battle for him, but for Mac, I think he's right in the thick of it. And you look at the odds right now: Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields are, I think, the first two, and then Mac's right behind him. Kyle Trask from Florida, but he just lost on Saturday to A&M, and I would say Mac's probably ahead of him in that race right now. So it's going to be interesting to see, once Fields gets playing, just kind of see where he's at with Ohio State. And Trevor Lawrence, is he still putting up the numbers he did a couple of years ago? It doesn't really seem like he's quite at that level, but, he's probably the favorite right now. So, yeah, it's been, I think the biggest surprise to me is just the offense is still running the same way that it had the last couple of years under Tua. I think we all expected them to shift a little bit more towards the running game this year and lean a little bit more on Najee Harris. And they've done that to some extent. They haven't passed a ton, but it's because they've been so efficient passing. They've only thrown 91 pass attempts, which is actually third fewest in the SEC so far this year. Yeah. And it's just been that when they've thrown the ball, they've been really good at it. And in fact, I think there was a stat after the game Saturday night that there was more plays on first down for Alabama that resulted in another first down or a touchdown than there were second down plays out of that. So they were more likely to be moving down the field on first down than anything else.
And I think that's a huge statistic. You point that out, and most coaches will tell you have a lot more success when you can start things off on a positive note and get convert on first down. It tends to you play out well for the remainder of the drive and obviously give that spark. So certainly an interesting dynamic, and obviously a lot of great things. I mean that to me says a lot about this Alabama offense and where they're at, especially considering, Everyone thought Tua's gone. Can Mac Jones? When we saw a sampling of Mac Jones last year, we saw what he was capable of. But for him to really take the reins, and you got to know that kid's got to have a lot of confidence right now with the way he's performed thus far, and obviously the weapons he has. Speaking on confidence, before we get to that, I do want to show this play of Najee Harris. Just kind of your thoughts. The game was obviously, pretty much wrapped up. Fourth quarter, this obviously kind of sealed the win, sort of the jive there. Najee Harris just showing off his athletic ability and kind of being like, doink, that's it. We'll see you. Bye-bye now. Always kind of interesting there at the end of the game. And I mean, he is just a tremendous playmaker. And obviously, like you said, it stinks that he may not have that opportunity to be Heisman. But I do love to see Najee kind of coming out with some of his personality and being a little bit more of that spokesperson for the team and kind of being at the forefront of things that, he hasn't always really been that way up until kind of leading into this season.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think he would have been the star of this team had the season unfolded more towards what I was expecting. But I think Max exceeded a lot of expectations. And not that quarterback would have been a weak position for this team, but I think it's actually a strength of the team right now. And that's again, not exactly what everybody pictured coming into this year.
No doubt about it. And kind of shifting to the defense, here's the deal. The defense obviously getting gashed against Ole Miss, allowing a program high 647 yards to Lane Kiffin nonetheless. So, of course, coming into it, you had that aspect of it. But here's the thing. There's some questions here about the defense, and I want to bring up this aspect of it. Nick Saban Saturday after the game mentioning about the hand signals, that potentially Ole Miss had their signals, and Lane Kiffin sounded off about that in this tweet that we're going to pop up for you here. Just want to get your thoughts on it. This Lane Kiffin saying, FYI, when you go as fast as we do, call our play first. Stealing signals wouldn't help us at all because we were snapping the ball while they were still trying to just line up. Facts. What does that say? Come to the SIP, Alabama football, go win the Natty, Ole Miss football. So your thoughts on just, first of all, Nick Saban making those comments, and then obviously the retort that comes from Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, or even just within the last half hour here, Ole Miss putting out a video too on their official account of it was a video basically of one of their assistant coaches describing how they would run a play before the game in one of their meetings, and they showed the exact play unfold in the game to Kenny Yeboah, basically the way they expected it to. So their message there was that they didn't really need to steal signals, that they had this great plan and they were just doing their own thing. And to be honest, I tend to believe Lane Kiffin here more than, I'd lean towards Nick Saban's explanation, because just watching that game in person, I mean, some of those D linemen were barely back to the line of scrimmage and putting their hand in the grass before, another play was run. So there wasn't a ton of time in between plays for Ole Miss to look at the Alabama hand signals and, send that message back to the sideline, and for the sideline to send it to the quarterback and the quarterback to send it to the receivers. I mean, it just, in order for all that to happen, it takes more time than they were really using in between plays. And I don't know, it was a little bit strange on Saban's part. He brought it up on his own. It wasn't a question that somebody asked. He just kind of threw it out there by himself. And, I was a little bit surprised in general too, with just Saban's demeanor towards the defense after the game. I thought this was going to be a classic game where he would kind of light into them and talk about how it wasn't acceptable and how they can't win games if they keep playing like that. But he actually struck more of a positive tone after that game than I don't know what I thought, and almost to some extent seemed to defend the defense. He was happy with the 2 stops they made towards the end of the game, holding them to field goals, and again, kind of threw out the hand signals as basically an excuse on why things weren't going their way. And Dylan Moses echoed that as well when he was asked about it. So it's not classic Saban. I think classic Saban would be, fiery and angry about the defensive performance and saying there's no excuses, and just a little bit different. And that was a little bit strange to me.
Well, yeah. And Mike, I think it's interesting if you kind of look back at some of Alabama's games, when it's a complete blowout, like the first couple of games were, obviously they kind of got away from them and the defense wasn't putting in the 4 quarters that Nick Saban was hoping for. We heard about it in previous years, that's always kind of been the case, especially in these big blowout games. But sometimes these closer games and that draw a lot more excitement, depending on who's watching. Nick Saban tends to have a different demeanor, a more positive demeanor. And I agree with you, though. In this case, I would have thought that Nick Saban would have been pretty disappointed in how they performed, and obviously a lot of them missed assignments. But it was interesting that he did take that route. But I've seen that from him time and time again. It's almost like Nick Saban kind of, with the excitement that comes with like a game like that he almost feeds into it a little bit. And in some ways, while I know he doesn't want the games to be close, you got to think from his perspective, like he's going out there and he's coaching this game, maybe he has a little bit more fun coaching a more competitive game like this. I don't know. It's hard to get a read on that for sure.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, he's happy with the win. And at the end of the day, too, it was a 2-possession game. By the end, it was a 15-point win for Alabama. So whether it's 63-48 or 20-5, not that that's a typical football score, but let's say a lower scoring game where there's a 15-point difference, a win's a win. And you can say it's just as comfortable in either direction. This one just seemed different because there was so much scoring, and it just wasn't what we were used to seeing from an Alabama defense. But, if Nick Saban can prove they can win different ways, then I think that will make him happy too. If they come out against Georgia, which is going to be a lower scoring game, I think we can all assume, and they win by one possession, what was the closer game? Was it the Georgia game, or was it the Ole Miss game, or was it a 2-possession game at the end? It's just a different feel, but the same result at the end of the day.
Yeah, no doubt. And so before I let you go, Mike, I just want to get your thoughts, just looking ahead to this Georgia game. What we saw from Alabama, the production that they had on offense. They welcomed Georgia to Tuscaloosa on Saturday for a 7:00 kickoff on CBS. So just your thoughts going up against this Georgia defense, obviously the number 3 team in the country. Do you think that they can have this type of production? Or are you expecting to see a completely different narrative on Saturday?
I think it'll be a different narrative in the sense that they're not, going to score touchdowns on 8 straight drives as it did against Ole Miss. I think it was a total of 40 yards they left on the field in terms of their one punt and then the 1 yard line fumble. So they gained almost every yard possible in that game, based on where they got the ball. That's not going to happen against Georgia. You're not going to be able to run the ball as well against Georgia. They have the best run defense in the country. And, there have been some points in this season so far where the running game hasn't been all that great for Alabama. And, Saban was upset about it after the A&M game and, upset with the coaching to some extent, along the offensive line after that one. So maybe we go back to more of that storyline where can Alabama run the ball, compared to what this storyline was, which is can they play defense? Because I think the defense is going to have a easier time against Georgia's offense and their shaky quarterback situation. So again, I think it's going to be a different style of game. But if Alabama comes out and they win, then, they've proven they can win different ways. And I think that's going to come in handy, at the end of the year and potentially into the playoff as well.
Yeah, good stuff, Mike. I appreciate the insight as always. And of course, Alabama again, home against Georgia, 7:00 Central Time, CBS. Looking forward to that one. Thank you so much for your insight. And we also want to thank our sponsor, All South Appliance Group, proud sponsor of SEC Insider, inviting you to visit us online, myallsouth.com, or at any one of our showrooms across Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida.